Hey guys, it's Caleb, and today I thought I'd do a top 10 list, because why not? So, have you ever wondered, what was your favorite extinct steam locomotive that's been retired and there's no preserved locomotives to keep their legacy, minus the Lionel and MTA and other rare models? Well, if you ask me about that, I decided to put that in a top 10. So here is my top 10 list of the top 10 extinct steam locomotives. Now this will feature both British and American steam locomotives, so please enjoy. Number 10. London, Brighton and South Coast Railway E2 Class 060T tank engine. The London, Brighton and South Coast Railway E2 class was a class of 060T steam locomotives designed by Lawson Billiton, intended for shunting and short-distance freight trains. 10 examples were built between 1913 and 1916, and were withdrawn from service and scrapped between 1961 and 1963. By 1910, many of the Straley E1 class locomotives were worn out and inadequate for the heavier duties required of the D.E. Marsh, intended to be rebuilt, some examples with larger boilers, but only one E1X rebuilt had been completed by the time of his unexpected retirement. Marsh's successors, Billiton, reversed this policy and instead ordered 5 new, more powerful locomotives from Brighton Works. The new class included several features on LB&SCRE classes, including L2 class boiler. They were delivered between June 1913 and January 1914. However, withdrawal of the class took place between February 1961 and April 1963, and were all scrapped. None have survived in preservation. But, however, we still have Thomas the Tank Engine to keep the legacy alive. Number 9. Pennsylvania Railroad Q2 Class 4464s. The Pennsylvania Railroad's Class Q2s comprised 1 prototype and 25 production duplex steam locomotives of 4464 wheel arrangement. There was only 26 built from 1944 to 1945. They were the largest non-articulated locomotives ever built and the most powerful locomotives ever static tested, producing 7,987 cylinder horsepower on the PRR static test plant. They were by far the most successful duplex type. The duplex propensity to slip was combated by an automatic slip control mechanism that reduced power to the slipping unit. The Q2 locomotive was 78% more powerful than the locomotives that PRR had in service at the time, and the company claimed that the Q2 could pull 125 freight cars at a speed of 50 miles an hour. Despite overall success, the Q2s were all out of service by 1951 with dieselization. They were obvious first targets to be withdrawn, and unfortunately, none of the Q2s are left preserved today. Number 8. Pennsylvania Railroad J1 210-4s. The Pennsylvania Railroad J1 was a class of 210-4 or Texas-type steam locomotives with 69-inch diameter driving wheels built between 1943 and 1944. The Juniata Schatz built 125 J1s. The J1 had over 95,000 pounds force of tractive effort, plus an additional 15,000 pounds if the booster engine was used. As with many of the Pennsylvania Railroad steam locomotives, the J1 had its headlight above the smoke box. Like the M1, the J1 had a keystone number plate, unlike the round number plates seen on the rest of PRR freight steam locomotives. They were also equipped with the Baker valve gear instead of the Worcester's valve gear, which was more common on the PRR. Additionally, they had radial stay fireboxes instead of bell pair fireboxes seen on nearly all the Pennsylvania Railroad steam locomotives. Mechanically, these locomotives were identical to the C&O T1 Class 210-4s. They came to be known as the PRR's war babies, but the J1s remained in service into the 1950s. When the Pennsylvania Railroad converted from steam power to diesel, the PRR scrapped most of them in 1958, with the exception of 25. The remaining 25 were scrapped in 1959. Number 7. Western Maryland J1 Potomacs. In 1947, they took delivery of 12 484 Northerns from Baldwin Locomotive Works. Since the Wild Mary was a Southern railroad, it dubbed its 484s Potomacs. They were the last 484s to be built new for American railroads. The Wild Mary Potomacs were large engines built for power and speed. The engine was a smooth runner when compared to the M2 4664, and performed nearly as well as they did at 45 miles an hour. They ran at 255 psi and weighed 928,000 pounds, including tender. They were used for 7 years until 1954, when they were taken out of service. All were scrapped in 1957, however. Number 6. Pennsylvania Railroad I-1SA 210 Decapods. And this one is a lot of info, so bear with me. A total of a staggering 598 I-1s were constructed between 1916 and 1923 by Baldwin and Juniata. They were the largest 210 Decapods built in the U.S., producing 90,000 lbs of tractive effort, with a large 30.5 by 32 cylinders, a nearly 8 diameter free steaming boiler, and 62-inch drivers. The I-1s were absolutely massive, taking advantage of the PRR's heavy trackage and high allowed axle loads. The Pennsylvania Railroad's Class I-1 steam locomotives were the largest class of 210 Decapods in the United States, with 598 being built between 1916 and 1923. They were the dominant freight locomotives on the system until World War II, and they remained in service until the end of Pennsylvania Road in 1957. Nicknames for the type included Dex and Hippos, the latter due to the larger boiler. Unlike smaller 210s that preceded them, the I-1's design was huge, taking advantage of the PRR's heavy trackage and high allowed axle load with a wide free steaming boiler. Large cylinders enabled the I-1s to apply that power to rails. Their power was undeniable, but they were not popular with the crews, for they were hard riding at all but low speeds. One author described them as holy terror of the PRR. The largest boiler limited the size of the driving wheels, which made it impossible to mount counterweight large enough to balance the piston truss. Their factor of adhesion is low, so they were prone to slipping. Subclass I-1SAs increased maximum steam cutoff to emit steam for 78% of piston stroke, rather than the original 50%, boosting low speed tractive effort from 90,000 pounds to 96,000 pounds force, 400 to 430 kN. There was no obvious external differences except for a revised builder's plate and of course the revised combination lever. I-1 locomotives were converted into I-1SA during major overhaul. Eventually 489 were converted, while 109 remained as built. Sadly, all PRR I-1SAs were retired from service, and all of them are scrapped. Except for I-1SA number 4483, which is stored at Hamburg, New York. Number 5. Baltimore and Ohio E27 Consolidations. The E27 was the last class of 280 consolidations acquired by the Baltimore and Ohio in 1905. These were the first 280s built specifically for the Baltimore and Ohio. All the other 280s prior to the E27s were acquired secondhand from railroads the B&O had absorbed. A total of 228 E27s were produced. They were so large they were almost as big as the railroad's Q, Class 282s. Saddled high above 60-inch drive wheels, they steamed at 205 psi and produced a massive 49,000 pounds of tractive effort. They were usually assigned to the districts and branches where the track was too light to handle larger, heavier locomotives. In 1923, a total of 165 E27s were put through a major upgrade, increasing boiler pressure to 215 and tractive effort pushed up to 50,800 pounds. By the mid-1950s, however, they have been displaced by modern diesels and switchers, and all of them were scrapped. Number 4. Baltimore and Ohio P7 Cincinnatian. After World War II, passenger train ridership was rapidly declining due to the popularity of automobile and air travel. The Baltimore and Ohio rebuilt 4 462 P7 Pacifics and 10 heavyweight passenger cars into matching streamlined and luxury train set. The route was a 12.5-hour, 581-mile run from Baltimore, MD, to Cincinnati, Ohio, via the mountainous terrains of West Virginia. Due to steep grades and tight schedules, the train was limited to 5 cars: baggage, lounge, combine, 52-seat, 56-seat, and 60-seat coaches, and a cafe observation car. With the scarce populations along the route and a lack of ridership resulted in the B&O changing the route to a 6.5-hour, 281 flat run to Detroit, Michigan, to Cincinnati. By 1955, diesels had taken over, and the streamlined steamers were shifted to various trains and retired by 1957. The Cincinnatian was discontinued in 1971 when Amtrak took over all of the B&O's passenger service. Number 3. Erie and NYSW 210 Russian Decapods. Prior to World War I, the Russian Imperial government ordered over 1,200 210 Decapod steam locomotives from Alco and Baldwin, but the Russian Revolution forced the cancellation of the order in 1917, leaving 200 of these Decapods undelivered. In 1918, these engines were rebuilt for U.S. service and turned over to United States Railroads Administration, USRA, who assigned them for various railroads. Many of these Russian Decapods began to find homes with smaller railroads. Their combination of lightweight and good pulling power made them an ideal freight engines for lines with branch lines and lighter rails. The Erie Railroad acquired one of the largest orders of the surplus engines, with a total of 75 of them. They were classified as J2s. These engines saw service from 1990 until 1950, when all of them were scrapped. However, in the 1940s, 16 of Erie's J2s were leased to the NYSW, aka the New York, Susquehanna, and Western, with 11 of them being ultimately purchased between 1942 and 1943. Unfortunately, none of these Russian Decapods are around today. All of them scrapped around the 1950s. Number 2. Milwaukee Road Hiawatha. The Hiawatha consisted of 4 442 Atlantics and 6 464 Hudsons. During the years of the Great Depression, very few railroads were spared devastating declines in stocks, as well as freight and passenger revenues. One way many railroads attempted to appeal to the public to maintain passenger ridership was to offer new sleek streamlined trains, which allowed for faster travel and lower operating cost. The Milwaukee Road was no exception. A fierce competition ensued between the CB&Q, the CNW, and the Milwaukee to offer the fastest service between Chicago, Illinois, and Minneapolis/St. Paul, Minnesota. The Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy experimented with a diesel-powered streamlined concept called the Zephyr. The CNW recommissioned a number of 462 Pacifics and existing passenger service and created the 400, named for its 400-minute service. And finally, the Milwaukee Road ordered 4 brand new 442 Atlantics from Alco and had their own shots produce 2 sets of 6 matching cars. The result was the most powerful 442 Atlantic ever produced, highest HP, and a fleet of passenger cars weighing 35% less than conventional heavyweight equipment of the time. The locomotive had enormous 84-inch driving wheels, smaller cylinders, and an odd arrangement of the running gear stemming from the lead driver rather than the second driver, which dramatically cut down piston speeds and was less taxing on the running gear overall. The new 1935 timetable called for 422 miles in 7 hours, with an average speed of 60 miles an hour, which included 11 stops along the route. Began in 1935 with a tip-top tap buffet lounge, 3 coaches, a parlor, and a beaver-tailed parlor observation car. By the end of the first year, another coach needed to be added to accommodate the growing popularity of the train. By 1937, the train had to grow 9 cars in length and still need to grow. At this point, Milwaukee acquired modernized 464 F7 Hudsons, which resulted in the 442s being reassigned to other Hiawatha trains. Designed as oil burners with a Leslie A125 air horn, the A-Class was considered the first steam locomotive designed to cruise at 100 miles an hour on a daily basis, and that they did for 16 years until diesels took over in 1951. All the Hiawatha locomotives, steam locomotives, were scrapped. And now for number 1. The New York Central 484 Niagaras. Considered by many experts to have been the ultimate steam locomotive, the 484 S1 Niagara was the answer to New York Central's desperate need for more power in the mid-1940s. 67 horsepower and 61,570 pounds of tractive effort allowed for fast express speeds for both freight and passenger service. A 14-wheeled centipede tender carried 46 tons of coal, providing enough fuel to travel over 600 miles at a time. Testing of the Niagara compared to an ABA set of E7 diesels proved the Niagaras to cost less to run and maintain. But a series of coal strikes and the New York Central's push to be the first with all modernized fleet of newer locomotives resulted in the New York Central steam fleet all being scrapped quickly. As the Niagaras encountered issues, they were withdrawn and scrapped. Niagara number 6015 made its final run on July 2nd, 1956 to Indianapolis with freight CC2, concluding 11 years of service on the railroad. All Niagaras were then retired and scrapped. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you have more suggestions for me to do, leave it down in the comments below and tell me what you think. I'll see you guys later.